On January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler was named Vice Chancellor of Germany. At that time, I was 5 years old and living in Berlin, Germany, where I had been born, with my parents and brother. My parents were Polish-born Jews who had lived in Germany for 20 years. My brother, who was 19 when Hitler came to power, immediately saw the threat that the Nazis posed to the Jews, and he persuaded my parents to leave their men's clothing business, home, and servants behind. Instead, we became refugees and fled to Antwerp, Belgium, where we had some cousins. When we were refused permission to remain in Belgium and were about to be deported to Poland, we boarded the Red Star Line's SS Westernland II, a ship going to the United States, and we arrived here on May 1st, 1934. During this time, my life was saved on a number of occasions, and that left me with the feeling that governed my life from then on. I felt my life had been saved because there was something I was meant to do in the world. I looked for that purpose all my life and found it when I was 37 years old, when I joined the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, in Washington, D.C. on October 4th, 1965, as the first woman attorney in its Office of the General Counsel. The EEOC was created to administer a brand new law, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which prohibited discrimination by employers, employment agencies, and labor unions based on race, color, religion, sex, and national origin. Later, discrimination based on age and physical and mental disabilities were added to the EOC's responsibilities. The prohibition against sex discrimination had been proposed as an amendment to the bill during the latter part of the bill's consideration, and it had been proposed by Democratic Congressman Howard W. Smith of Virginia, a segregationist whose motives for proposing it were unclear. There had been no nationwide women's movement immediately preceding Congressman Smith's proposed amendment. Nonetheless, the bill passed with the prohibition against gender discrimination in it. Most of the EEOC's early employees had no interest in gender discrimination. They had come to the EEOC after the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s to fight employment discrimination based on race or color. They did not want the Commission's resources diverted to issues of gender discrimination. Once I realized that there were very few people at the EEOC who had any interest in implementing the gender discrimination prohibitions of the Act, I realized it would be necessary to turn the EEOC around on this, and that we needed an organization to do this. As fate would have it, during the early days of the EEOC, a writer came to the EEOC. She had become famous through publishing a book in 1963 called The Feminine Mystique, which dealt with the frustrations of women who were housewives and mothers and did not work outside the home. Now, she was interviewing EEOC officials for a second book she thought she was going to write about all the progress she thought women had made in the few years since The Feminine Mystique had been published. Her name was Betty Friedan. When she saw me, a woman, in the General Counsel's office, Betty asked me to tell her what was really going on at the Commission. As a staff member, however, I did not feel I could publicly speak about the problems at the Commission, and I did not tell her what was happening with regard to women's issues. But when she came a second time, I was feeling particularly frustrated by the Commission's failure to implement the law for women, and I invited her into the privacy of my office. There, I told her with tears running down my cheeks that what this country needed was an organization to fight for women like the NAACP, the National Organization for the Advancement of Colored People, fought for its constituents. Then, at two meetings in Washington, D.C., in June and October of 1966, the National Organization for Women, now, was founded by 49 men and women, of whom I was privileged to be one, and it was founded to bring women into the mainstream of American life. Betty Friedan was its first president. As you know, that was 55 years ago. Now's activities and the EEOC administration of the gender discrimination prohibitions of Title VII began a worldwide legal revolution in the rights of women that continues to this day. Women's rights was the focus of my life then and remains the focus of my life today. Thank you so much for recognizing my work by giving me this Life Achievement Award.